We're talking about the program of Justice Reinvestment with our expert panel, Klynton Wanganeen, Robyn Layton, Ralph Bonig and also Cheryl Axleby. Now, Klynton, we spoke during the break about young people who might turn to a life of crime. Do they actually take advice from the elders in your communities? Obviously there's some successful footballers somewhere in your family. The name rings a bell. Is that something that we should foster?
Yeah, we should support that, and we should actually be about creating multiple opportunities. We have our successes in the sporting arena. We also have our Aboriginal people who are exceeding really well in law. We have quite a number of Aboriginal lawyers. We've got half a dozen Aboriginal doctors. We've got probably well over 100 Aboriginal teachers. And it's about creating the opportunities and choice, because our people don't want to be trained and then have nothing tangible to go on to. We have to actually do training that gives people a choice, wrap around the services and provide opportunities. Get the employment, link them into elders for support, connect them back to culture and do a raft of things. But it's about everyone cooperating, everyone collaborating and engaging the community, so that we don't just push people down one path. There's multiple pathways. Economic participation for us is a must, and building that respect.
A lot of people obviously will undergo training courses, be they Aboriginal or whatever, and at the end of the training course there's nothing, Robyn. That's a bit of a disappointment. It can also lead to frustration and boredom. They've tried all these things and they're not getting anywhere, and bang, they're in the system.
That's true, but you've also got to get people staying in the training, because often programs start off but they don't have that sustainability and continuation, because people need support. For example, there are a number of programs that try and engage Aboriginal people in employment and in trainee programs, but if they're not supported in there and they're isolated so that they might be the only Aboriginal there, it's not going to keep them there. So a number of the wraparound services that have been spoken of by Klynton need to be there to have that encouragement.
What about the state government, Klynton? You're finding that they're responsive to all these things that you people are proposing, you guys are proposing?
Yeah, I mean, the South Australian government recently released a discussion paper about regional authorities. It's about bringing Aboriginal community organisations and people together to look at the big picture in their region. And it's looking about economic opportunity, but it's also about making the system accountable to actually getting outcomes, but looking at sustainability, like Robyn said. We don't want 6-month programs or 12-month programs. If you're going to get into justice reinvestment, you do it for the long haul. And so it's a commitment by all and a commitment by government.
Now, Cheryl, you were mentioning earlier that it's not only, it's like your physical well-being and mental state of health is also affected for people who are sort of out of the loop as far as employment, and they're perhaps ostracised by their mates or something for whatever reason, and they turn to perhaps a life of crime or
well, I think
crime.
and I think also it's about people who have undiagnosed mental health issues, or may have mental health issues, who actually end up in the justice system. And again, we're looking at, I suppose, the cutback of services to support people in the community, and then we end up with people in the justice system. So for me, I think it's really important that we get back to looking at what kind of support services we can actually have at the local level in the community.
Are there enough now? Should there be? What sort of support services are you talking about?
Well, I'm talking about people with mental health issues who are not getting supports out there within the system, whether it be because of the incapacity, whether it be there might be not enough services out there in the community. And particularly that, for Aboriginal people, some services are not culturally competent. So, Aboriginal people won't engage in those services, which is why we really strongly advocate for increased Aboriginal services.
Okay. Now, Ralph, what does society think of all this sort of thing? I mean, obviously, you can't minimise all crime. We're talking about an example in Western Australia that sounded pretty good to me. That what they're doing over there is something we could replicate here, maybe.
Well, in Western Australia, they have recently spent quite a bit of money on building some new prisons and so on, and the crime rate hasn't stopped. People are being locked up faster than ever, and the government has recently over there shelved a program to build a further prison, and has put or earmarked that money into a justice reinvestment program. In South Australia, where I have been out speaking to people and speaking to organisations, I'm not getting any resistance about the concept of justice reinvestment, because ultimately it's about making the community safer. So it's about preventing the crime and making people feel safe in their houses and in their streets and so on. And it's tackling some of the underlying issues like Cheryl spoke about mental health, where I think the stats show that about 30% of prisoners that enter the prison system have got underlying mental health issues. And then there's drug and alcohol issues and so on. And I think the community embraces the concept of dealing with those problems. And if that's what's leading to the offending and we can deal with that, then I think the community is keen on looking at justice reinvestment.
So, Robyn, there's no sort of silver bullet to all this. It's a fairly complex thing that involves lots and lots of people that we're seeing from all parts of the